Let me assert my firm belief that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Two Joes. I'm Joe Trippi, longtime Democratic strategist and somewhat a rebel in my own party.
And I'm Joe Klein, longtime political columnist and somewhat of a rebel in my own mind. And we have a special guest this week, uh, one of the few triple threats in the Democratic Party. A great thinker, a great strategist, a great political tactician, Elaine Kamarck, who is a member of the Democratic National Committee's Rules Committee and a senior fellow, is it, Elaine, at
Yes.
at the Brookings Institution. And Elaine was the person who was in charge of government reform during the Clinton administration. And to start things off, I want to open with this week's quote of the week, which comes from Bill Clinton, and who said, "The new rage is to say that the government is the cause of all our problems. And if only we had no government, we'd have no problems. I can tell you that contradicts evidence, history, and common sense." And Joe, you have a stat?
Yeah, my stat of the week is 81. That's 81 days until the end of January and the next potential government shutdown.
So, so let me start this off by asking Elaine, what just happened?
Well, what just happened is they came to the end of the road. It was very clear look, it's been very clear from the beginning, from everything they've done in this administration, that they don't care about the government. In fact, the more chaos, the better. The more malfunctions, the better. Vought has said years ago in an off-the-record quote that was widely circulated, is that he wants federal workers to go to work and fear. He wants them to feel fear and tragedy. So they don't care. And it was very clear that they didn't care about opening the government either. And I think what happened to the Democrats, or at least the 8 Democrats who switched sides, and probably some others who were secretly, going rah-rah on the sides, is they realized, okay, they've taken this as far as they could. In terms of getting publicity for the ACA premium increases and SNAP, which was a kind of added, bonus to the whole thing, and that they weren't going to cave. So the Democrats might as well reopen the government, and they've got 2 great episodes to take into election year, and that's it. It's over.
Mhm. Well, one distinction I made in my newsletter today is that people were waiting for a taco moment. Trump always chickens out. But there are only taco moments when it has to do with the stock market or dollars and cents. In this case, there was not going to be a cave because Donald Trump couldn't care less about the suffering of the people and the conduct of the government.
And in fact, look, it is a conscious strategy on their part to make people leave the government. That's what they've been doing all year. 154,000 people have left the government, either with the deferred resignation, a buyout, early retirements, or retirements. That's the strategy. They want them out of the government. They want it to be smaller, but they also, and this is not said except from time to time, they want to replace them with Republicans, with MAGA people who will do their bidding. So they were never going to open up the government. This is right along their, that's just where their heads were.
I also think I think the shutdown put it all out there, the cruelty versus empathy or whatever I mean, the uncaring, the just pain at all costs. And that's what SNAP came into, is exactly that. It just showed that they were willing, didn't care, 42 million people, go hungry. They were willing to inflict that pain. And in the end, 8 Democrats weren't. But I mean, that's the sort of the balance for the American people that they're going to see, and that's why I do pick my 81 as the number, because it's going to, what's going to happen is there's going to be a vote in the Senate on the ACA. My guess is it's not, they're not going to get any Republican, or they're not going to get enough votes, and then the House wouldn't take it up anyway. We all know that's the case. Johnson has said that, Speaker Johnson. So do we just come right back to another shutdown, Elaine, or
We might, but now let me just make a point about the House. The margin is so small, okay? And they will have to, once they come back in, they will have to confirm the newest member for the Adelita from
exactly?
Arizona. I love her name, Adelita. And they'll have to bring her back in. And then, frankly, all they need is a handful of Republicans to switch sides and vote a discharge petition and get the thing on the floor. And of course, a lot of people think that the reason they've been closed for so long is they didn't want a discharge petition on the Epstein records. They didn't, because there is a discharge petition there with Congresswoman Adelita. They've got 218 votes, so they might in fact be able to get a real vote. And then when they get a real vote, there's, what is it? You guys probably know better than me. There's about 13 members of Congress where they won their Republicans who won their seat, and so did Kamala Harris win her seat.
Yeah.
That could be the difference, right? I mean, that could be the difference in the majority next year. So you got to think that those people are, thinking to themselves, hey, I've got to vote a different way on this than my president and my party.
I also think one of the takeaways from this shutdown is that the Affordable Care Act came home for a lot of red state Congress people and senators, because the people whose premiums were going to go up live in red states. I
Yep.
mean, you might call them Marjorie Taylor Greene
Yeah.
Republicans, and
Right.
and I think, I mean, I, foolishly optimistic as ever, think that there will be a vote on Obamacare subsidies, and it will pass. For that
Yeah.
reason,
I think it'll pass. I think it'll pass. I mean, I think the only chance they have is to keep it from getting to the floor. And that is keeping them from getting enough votes for a discharge petition, which is long, and it takes a lot of time, and it rarely works. All my congressional colleagues at the Kennedy School, listen to me, my other job, all my congressional colleagues at Brookings tell me how hard it is to do discharge petitions, and people I'm married to tell me how hard it is to do discharge petitions. But the fact of the matter is, it happens, right? 218 votes is not that far away from reality in this Congress.
And Trump will
we
be
should
there
add,
pushing everything the other way. I mean, there's going to be a lot of pressure on a lot of but particularly, you're right, Elaine, in the 18 districts or so that are out there, and some of the Senate races could actually be on the line on that kind of a vote too. So that
Yeah, see,
the pressure will be. It's going to be interesting, because on this one it was the pressure on whether 8 Democrats were going to come over. From here on in, it's actually the other way around.
it
The
is.
pressure is really going to be on whether there are movable objects in the Republican side in both the Senate and the House.
Yeah, and they're going to start hearing. I mean, the thing about waiting
Oh,
to November, no, to November 1st is critical, because I said for many weeks now, this thing will come to a head November 1st. When it was abstract, right? When it was the whole month of October, the premium increases were abstract. There was no way that normal people, other than reading the fine print of the one big beautiful bill, there was no way you could figure out what was going to happen to you. November 1st was the first day that you could apply to either get onto Obamacare, or you could renew your Obamacare. And that's when they started sending out these premium increases, and they are gargantuan. I
yes.
mean, they are huge. They are 50, 100, 200%. of what people had been paying. And it had to be, you had to wait till then because the public wasn't going to be able to feel this until the government was saying, okay, time to sign up. And by the way, you used to pay nothing and now you have to pay $268 a month.
And now
Elaine,
that every day that the number of those people who understand that the premiums are going up increases every day between now and whenever this vote on the ACA happens in December.
That's right.
who's the culprit here, Elaine? Oh, by the way, we should mention that when you talk about people you're married to, for those of our viewers and listeners who exist in ignorance, Elaine is married to the wonderful and decent and estimable Steny Hoyer, senior member of Congress.
That's right.
But
Estimable.
Great decision
Estimable.
on his part. One of
yes.
yeah.
I'm old enough to remember when there was a Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE. You remember that? It seems to have
Yeah.
it
It's
seems
still
to
it's
have,
still there, Joe. It's still there.
Yeah.
has it done anything worth doing? And I know that you live for great ideas about how to make the government better, how to reform it, which is one thing that I think Democrats should have at the top of their agenda, but they rarely do. But what did DOGE do?
DOGE created confusion and fear in the federal government. That's what it did. And as a result of that, caused many people to leave in disgust. And ironically, it lost types of people. Old people, which is a plus and minus, right? You lose some old people, and you have room to replace them with younger people with fresh energy, fresh ideas, new technology. That's not so bad, but you do lose some wisdom, some institutional memory, etc. A lot of people took retirements. Okay, we don't know. We know there's 154,000 total. We don't know what the percentage is there yet. The second thing it did, though, was cause many people to just say, "I'm out of here. This is crazy. I'm out of here. These people call me scum. These people think that we're a bunch of crooks. I'm out of here." And with that, you probably lost a lot of skill. And the reason is, who leaves a job voluntarily? Somebody who knows they can easily get another job. And the big change in the federal government, which the public is light years away from catching up to, is that these people are, by and large, not paper pushers. By and large, the federal government consists of doctors, lawyers, PhDs, scientists, biologists, molecular biologists, nuclear physicists, etc. That's who works for the federal government. You don't have some pal off the street reviewing drugs for the Food and Drug Administration, right? You need a molecular biologist doing that. So it's a very sophisticated workforce. It has the highest number of four-year college degrees plus than any workforce in America or in the world. Okay, that's the kind of workforce it is. Now, what that means is, A, they can leave more easily than somebody with a high school degree. B, they can't be replaced easily. And let me just give you the archetypal story here, which has been now repeated for months throughout the government. Late January, early in February, they announced more than 2,000 job cuts at the Department of Energy. Now, your listeners and many Americans don't realize that the Department of Energy is really the Department of Nuclear Weapons. Okay, that's where all of our management of the nuclear arsenal, 3,528 pieces, right, is in the Department of Energy. There's a group in there called the National Safety Administration, and they are scientists and engineers. And what do? They make sure that the nuclear weapons are safe, i.e., they're not leaking radiation. They're not about to blow up in the middle of Nebraska or wherever they are. I'm just taking a guess about Nebraska. In other words, they guard our nuclear stockpile. And it's a very sophisticated job. You can't replace them with a Montad or with, I'm showing my age, but whatever people use now on the internet to find jobs. Okay. You can't replace these people. They did that, and every single one of them was offered to be rehired within 36 hours because the people who did it said, whoops, oh my God, how terrible. We might have a nuclear disaster on our hands because we fired these people. Okay. That story is repeated throughout the government. By our last count, soon to be published, more than 25,000 people have been fired and rehired because the whoops factor is going on all over the government. Okay, this has been a crazy, crazy, crazy process without regard for anything that the government does and whether or not people want the government to do the things they're doing, like land airplanes, approve drugs, protect nuclear weapons. That's what they've done.
You know,
And it was guys named Big Balls that were doing it too. I mean, it was like
right.
just unbelievable.
No, it was unbelievable. It was unbelievable. Now,
I love the fact that
story
Trippi has brought Big Balls into this sacred
That's right.
precinct.
Well,
But
he's one of my favorite people.
he's the what is he, 12-year-old dope
12 years old. I think he's 24 or something like
Yeah.
that. But anyway, the story doesn't end there because, Musk clearly overplayed his hand. Musk became very unpopular. The polls showed it, everything showed it. Unfortunately, waiting in the wings was a guy named Russell Vogt, who's the head of OMB. And Vogt knew how to do this and was determined to do this. And Vogt has been continuing it just without the drama, okay, that Elon Musk brought to it and without the stage managing. Because I think they also realized that bragging about this the way they were doing was actually turning off people. And the polls showed this, that this was turning off people because most Americans, they might say the federal government is big and wasteful. But then when they look at thousands of people who are being fired for no reason, that makes them really insecure about their job. They would hate that if it happened to them.
Elaine, one of the big arguments within the party has been about what's called abundance theory, that we've made it, government has made it too damn hard to build things. High-speed rail in California, housing everywhere. Say it's 2028 and President Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez gives you a call, as unlikely as that would be, and she says, look, I want to spend a hell of a lot more money on healthcare. Where can we get savings? How do we go about reforming this government and making progress and getting things done in a sane way? What would you say to her?
Well, I would say to do a regulatory reform process, pure and simple. We did it in the Clinton administration. We cut 16,000 pages of federal regulations. Those are regulations from the FAR. We cut 382,000 pages of agency regulations because people don't realize that regulations are like kudzu. They just grow and grow and grow out of control. And periodically, you got to just look at them and say, well, that doesn't make any sense anymore. The Obama administration under Cass Sunstein, they did a regulatory review as well. And when this administration came in, remember it was going to be Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy together.
Mhm.
And Ramaswamy actually had the right idea. He kept talking about regulatory review. Regulatory review doesn't save the federal government that much money, frankly. Okay. What it saves is it saves the private sector oodles and oodles of money. The minute you start streamlining regulations, getting rid of obsolete regulations, you're saving the private sector a lot of money. And that obviously is very good for the economy. And that's what abundance theory, is all about. They should have done that. Okay. Their friends in the business community would have been wild about it. And frankly, they would have had the right kind of boost to the economy, as opposed to, say, tariffs, which is not a good boost to the economy.
What do you make of, oh, this is more ancient history. It happened a whole week ago. What do you make of the election results? What did you take from them?
The reason Democrats lost in 2024 was certain key groups abandoned them, and they all came back. So the Hispanics, that's the big story. Hispanics across the board. Passaic County, New Jersey, okay? I think it's the ninth district in Virginia. All over the place,
Mhm.
Hispanics came back. And I think that indicates that this was not a permanent loss to the Democrats. It's not necessarily a permanent gain either, but it means that we're back in the ball game.
And young people, 18 to 29, I mean, they were independents were voting for in all those races, 60 over 60% for the Democratic candidate.
Yeah,
I thought Maine was interesting because of the Prop One up there, which
yeah,
was really restrictive on voting, on voting, um, and 64% of the state. But Maine is not like it's not California, okay?
right.
But you had almost the exact same vote as California did on Prop 50. Maine was 64 points there, and a lot of independents voting to not require a lot of the restrictions that the Republican Prop 1 was trying to put
Yeah,
on in Maine. So there were a lot of and even the Public Service Commission wins in Georgia.
Georgia.
Yeah, the two places where they weren't close. It was over 300,000 votes each, and no Democrat had won non-federal statewide office in Georgia since like gosh 2000
Oh,
2001,
yeah.
over
Oh, yeah.
25 years. So it was pretty significant, I think.
Well, I was interested in Maine as well, just because in every state, in every race, it became nationalized. There was the Trump position and the anti-Trump position, and right across the board, the anti-Trump position won, which goes to show that if you're an optimist, like I am, almost more so than Joe is, if you're an optimist, it means when Trump's gone, a lot of this stuff just doesn't last apart from Trump himself and this hold he has on this portion of the electorate.
I'm particularly
Yeah.
interested in and pissed off about um, uh, the Latino vote. I'm not pissed off about how they switched, but I think that it was that, people talk about affordability being the theme of this election. I think for the Latino vote, which moved way past where it was before Trump snatched some of it, and moved much more to the Democratic side, is because there are an awful lot of Latinos who are worried that they're going to be picked up off the street and put in jail for no good reason.
Yeah.
And the question is, if you look at what this government is doing actually on a day-to-day basis, the thing that makes me crazy, the thing that sets what's left of my hair on fire, is this violence in the street being conducted by this government of vandals. Is there any way, where do you think that issue stands in the public mind right now, non-Hispanics? And is there any way for Democrats to actually respond to this in an effective way?
Go back to the bipartisan bill that Democrats negotiated with Republicans, which was not a very liberal bill and it wasn't a very conservative bill. It was a perfect compromise filled with common sense. Go back to that bill, stick to that bill. The danger the Democrats have is that they're going to say, oh, the wind's at our backs on this issue, and they're going to be all the way back to being what the Republicans like to call open border people. And look, most Democrats have never been, even Bernie
Right.
Sanders has called open borders insane. Okay, so Democrats aren't there. So you got to resist the temptation to go too far left. And there is one instrument you can hang your hat on. Go look at the provisions of that bill, which, if you remember, Trump killed it at the last minute because he wanted an issue that he could run on. So go back to that bill, stick to that bill. Don't go left, don't go right, just stick to the damn bill, and you've got it.
That might be the name of the of this episode, Stick to the Damn Bill.
Yeah.
Well, this raises the the possibility that I keep on harping on, which is one way to go against Trump now is to come up with better ideas. And that immigration bill not only was a better idea, but it was pretty much written by a very conservative Republican named James Lankford. And there are other things that can be done. I mean, I keep on pushing for a bipartisan bill to put more cops on the streets and maybe also to train the ICE agents who really look like the last generation of overweight, undertrained, and occasionally vicious cops. There are things that Democrats can propose, but they're not proposing them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, remember, it's so early. I mean, one of the
Yeah.
things one of the problems I think we have is that this administration came out with all guns blazing. They have done so much in their first 10 months that it feels like they've been around forever, right? I don't remember a year where during the first year of a Republican administration, Democrats had a clear idea and a clear platform. It doesn't happen that way, right? We're gonna find there's going to be a lot of candidates running in 2026. We'll figure out what they're saying. One of the things we do at Brookings regularly is we study the Democratic and the Republican candidates for Congress. So that'll give us a hint as to what people think is working out there. And then in 27, we'll start the presidential politics. I also think that we have a Biden hangover in this party. And the Biden hangover is, oh, he was old and unexciting, and therefore nothing he did was right, and therefore the whole party's kaput. Well, that's not the case. That's not the case. There's plenty of
Yeah.
energy in the party. The governors in the party are in great shape. Okay, they're popular in their states, et cetera. So I just think we need to sit back and take a deep breath and not get so hysterical over
No,
this.
and I think Tuesday showed that. I mean, some of the new
Yeah.
faces and and the bench that's being built out there. So going just looking at 28 a little bit. Do you? I mean, do you? Sitting on committee, do you see any real changes to the calendar? I mean, is that even started yet? I mean, the sort of maneuvering to try to figure out how the next nomination battle is played out, or is that putting the horse way in front of the cart?
It's a little early. I mean, what we just did in October was we approved sort of a request for proposals to go out to the states and ask them to show us to come and make proposals to us that we could hear probably in early 2026. And those proposals would be, they'd have to include certain things. And one of the things they would have to include is this realistic? In other words, if there's a Republican legislature in your state, is this a realistic thing for you to pull off? Okay, or is it just pie in the sky and you want some attention? So there were a lot of things like that. So I think the proposals are good and solid and cover the ground. And I think that we'll see early on who wants to be first. There's also a lingering feeling, I'm not so crazy about it as I used to be, that we should begin with small states because of retail campaigning. We should begin in small states where it's
Right.
possible to do retail campaigning. And I think there's definitely something to be said about that. Although I'm not sure that having a sequence of Jimmy Carters as our nominees is maybe the best thing we can do. So we'll see.
Well, I do think that a medium-sized state like that would be in play under the best of circumstances, like North Carolina, might not be a bad place to start.
North Carolina, Georgia, Michigan. I mean, there's a lot of swing states that are definitely in play. Michigan was the choice last time around. Michigan preceded Super Tuesday and gave that boost. I mean, remember, primaries are all about momentum, presidential
Yeah.
primaries. It's a sequential process. So it's what's the boost where do you get the boost into Super Tuesday? Because when you get to Super Tuesday, it's all momentum. We have to remember that Joe Biden went into Super Tuesday in 2020 with no money. I mean,
Right.
literally no money. He was not on the air, and he swept to Super Tuesday on the basis of what he did in South Carolina. So it's really a sequential process, and that's one of the things I think we'll be thinking about.
Yeah, no, my thing, having worked in several presidential campaigns, I lean towards the smaller states. It just it gives everybody, somebody who isn't even actually putting a lot of money together in the early stages a shot.
Yeah.
And certainly, Obama did well in Iowa and in that first race against with Hillary and Edwards. So I just, it doesn't have to be Iowa or New Hampshire every time, but like whether it's South Dakota, I mean, some place where
Right.
there's retail, and maybe I just think that that's the thing, a state that's too big, it really makes it all about money.
Yeah.
If
Can't
it's
do
too big, yeah,
California.
yeah,
You
no,
know,
Well,
no, no way.
last time around, we told New York, no, we don't want you to apply because you're just too big
Yeah,
and it's
yeah,
just too expensive. And I think should California didn't even apply last time, but I mean, should California come, we'd say the same thing.
yeah,
It's too big, it's too expensive. So you're right. I think that the question is how small do you
yeah,
want?
yeah, yeah. I get that.
well, I think journalists, the late Walter Shapiro, a friend to all of three of us, and I used to fantasize about the first primary that journalists should vote their best interest, and their best interest would be to have the first primary be in Hawaii because of the weather. But I have a certain amount of feeling for New Hampshire. Uh, I think that in the past it was a kind of conservative democratic state. Now it's kind of more,
Can we
Bernie Sanders.
can we
Uh,
just be frank
but
about this?
yeah,
It's not your sweet spot is for the taverns in New Hampshire
it
that have a
absolutely.
special place in your heart. That's what it's all about.
No,
But
I have great memories,
but
and so do you. Uh,
yes, but Maine, there are plenty of places. It'll be interesting to see what happens. I was just wanted to get a quick glimpse of it from you, Elaine. Thank you.
Yeah.
mhm. Elaine, is there something else that um, really is you're really thinking about a lot right now that other people aren't thinking about? Um, if you had to, shake the Democratic Party by the shoulders and say, let's think about this, what would it be?
It would be stay away from the cultural issues. Don't get caught. Time and time again, things are going pretty well for the Democrats. They've got an economic platform, da 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 da, and they get shanghaied by the cultural issues. Willie Horton, they, them, whatever. Stay away from them. We do so much better when we're not caught up in what are essentially manufactured issues by the Republicans, but we fall for them every time. You know what I mean? We're like suckers. We just don't learn. We fall for them. Stay away from the cultural issues, and people can hear the economic issues. If you are if you think your kids are going to be sent to school and taught to be girls, not boys, right? You're so outraged by this that doesn't matter what the economic issues are. You can't hear it. And that's what I would say. Just stay away from them.
I got one last question. Where does all this redistricting mania
Oh yeah,
come out in
good
the
point.
end?
Um,
And let's assume that the Supreme Court strikes down racial gerrymandering. Where do we wind up?
well, unfortunately, if let's take them separately. Just the redistricting, my guess is it might be a wash. Okay, because states are having trouble now beyond the Californians. They're having trouble figuring this out and getting it done. Even here in Maryland, it's a problem. Um, okay, so that might be a wash. I think if the racial gerrymandering gets struck down by the Supreme Court, then in fact the Republicans can pick up some seats. And, in a country that's so closely divided, so polarized, where there's been a decreasing number of swing districts over the last 50 years, every single seat counts.
It seems to me that racial gerrymandering is kind of like some of these cultural issues. If you go back to the 90s, when it really took hold in a place like Georgia, the effect was that Black inner city politicians made deals with extremely conservative suburban politicians and wiped out the moderate Democratic Party in the South. Before the 1994 election in Georgia, there were 6 white moderates. After that
Yeah.
election, which Clinton got clobbered, there were 0 white moderates. I'll take Black or Latino or any kind of moderates, but I wonder if
Well,
perversely, this might put some seats in play.
Well, I don't know. Let's hope so. Let's hope it does.
yeah,
That would be very nice.
yeah. I
And
think
then the Democrats have to win them.
Yeah, I think over time it might, but I don't think in the polarization that we're in right now that there's much. I don't hold a lot of hope for that. But this time around in 26, the one thing that was I think an interesting take was. As you all know, in Virginia, we won something like 64 out of 100 House of Delegate seats
Yeah,
last
that's
Tuesday. I mean,
right.
it's a massive 26-seat shift. We won every single district in which Kamala Harris got 47.5% of the vote or higher. Every single district in
Wow.
Virginia that was where she did 47.5 or better, we swept them. If you actually, somebody's actually looked at every House district in the country, and if you did exactly the same, if the same thing held nationwide in district after district, it'd be 219 Democratic seats. That's how. So
Wow.
you have to. That was, I think she won like had a 4.7 point shift. So you'd have to. I mean, generically, that would have to be on a generic ballot
Right.
somewhere +5, which we've seen some numbers like that. But it just shows you how tight the House is going to be, no matter how this plays
That's right.
out with redistricting.
That's
God,
right.
we're sounding optimistic, all 3 of us, each in our own perverse way.
Well, what made me optimistic about the thing that I'm pessimistic about is the crap that the Trump people will play on election day 2026 and ICE in front of polling places and intimidation. And I think Maine in particular, with the reaction of 64% of the vote that they're to said no, we don't want that. We don't want the ones that they could see that were on the ballot. It made me you have greater faith that maybe the American people, the more of that crap they try to do, the American people will be even that much tougher on them in that election, and we'll get that big generic vote that we're going to need to have the victory that we need in both and I think maybe even the some Senate seats could be in play, particularly if the ACA thing goes haywire on them, which is totally possible with this
It's
party.
totally possible. Yeah.
Right. Well, I think that does it
Yeah.
for us this week, Joe, although you have veto power over what does it for us, as I do.
No, that I think that's great. Elaine, thanks so much for being with us, and thanks everybody for listening or watching. You can follow Trippi's Take on Substack. We also that Trippy show with my partner Alex Ashlow, and please check out all the Lincoln Square other shows out there that Rick Wilson and others are doing. Stuart Stevens, Joe, where can people find you?
Well, they can find me in 2 places. One is my Substack newsletter, which is called Sanity Clause. And the other is this podcast, but also a podcast that John Ellis and I have called Night Owls. And we should remind folks that they can find Elaine's work on a regular basis on the Brookings on the Brookings website. Could you be more specific than that for us, Elaine? Because I know people, when they listen to you, they say, I want to hear more of that stuff.
Yeah.
All you have to do is go to brookings.edu and type in Kamarck, Kamarck. We have a very nice piece up about the election, this midterm elections, with me, EJ Dion, Bill Galston, and I'm leaving out somebody, wrote for this cycle, which a lot of people are enjoying. So have a look at that. And all of my stuff on Doge is on the Brookings website. And if I ever get back to work here, it'll be in a book next year.
We're
Great.
looking forward to it, and we will tout that book.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks,
you.
Elaine, and thanks, everybody. We'll be back next week with another episode of Two Joes.
Let me assert my firm belief that the only thing we have to fear is